We'd like to welcome you to the Shops at Hilltop in our first town hall meeting. We have questions that were submitted by Richmond residents. And yeah, it's a sparse turnout right now. People may show up later, and we're hoping to have another one amongst the other town halls. But this is a great thing that we decided we wanted to do because the Shops at Hilltop, we do want to be part of the community. We are part of the community. We've always been part of the community. So we should have something here like this. So we're getting our candidates in place, and once again, we've had questions that were submitted by Richmond residents. We'll also go into the audience to ask questions. The first, how we're going to start is we're going to start with introductions with the candidates. And then we're going to go into the questions. Because we only have 2 mayoral candidates here, they're going to go towards the end. I'm sorry, but you each will get like a really long time because you're going to have 4 questions each. So you have more exposure. So I want to introduce our moderator, longtime Richmond resident, grew up, by the way. Kevin, can you come up? He will be taking this from me right now. Introduce yourself and tell everyone about you. And, you know, we're from the rich, as we call it, from the rich. So tell people about yourself, and then you can tell about the format of the show.
All right, give it up for Kara Braxton, please, ladies and gentlemen. She's been doing a wonderful job coordinating this event, and we appreciate her and all of her excellent service. Well, welcome. This is the town hall meeting to meet the candidates for city council and the mayoral candidates for Richmond, California, brought to you by Shops at Hilltop. Give it up for our candidates who are here tonight, looking so distinguished. I am Stephen Parker, and I am from Richmond, California, not born, but raised in Richmond, California. My mother, Texanita Blewett, was very, very involved in the government, and I'm sure a lot of these people up here know her, and so I just kind of took on the mantle to be a part of what's going on in the city government of Richmond, California. I do have a radio show on KDIA, 1190 AM every Sunday morning, and this is part of some of the things that I do. I moderate events like this, and I'm so honored to be here tonight. So thank you guys for being here, and thanks for having me. So let's go get right into it and introduce these wonderful candidates who want to lead in the city of Richmond, California. So we have Mr. Diego Garcia is here tonight. Give him a hand, please. Good to have you. And then we have Miss Carol Johnson, who is also running for city council. We have Vicky Ramirez. And they didn't give her a sign, and I'm gonna get them about that, Vicky. Good to have you tonight. In the back over here, would you stand so they can see you, Mr. Cesar Sabeda? We have Miss Eleanor Thompson. Would you stand so they can see your beautiful self, Miss Eleanor? David Schoenthal is here. I would call you beautiful, David, but I won't.
Come on now. You're beautiful.
Yes, you are. Then we have Miss Ada Recenos. Mr. Edward Martinez is here tonight. Then we have Mr. Demolish Johnson. And now our mayoral candidates are here. Would you give it up for Mr. Melvin Willis? And the sitting mayor of Richmond, California is here, Mr. Tom Butt. Good to have all of you guys here tonight. We're going to get right into it. I appreciate you guys coming. We're going to ask some questions, and we're going to go through and let a few of you tackle a few questions. If there's something that you feel that you really want to address, feel free to raise your hand. We have a mic right here, and so we'll just have to pass that around to all of the candidates. All right? All right, let's get started. As a council member of this city, you will represent residents of the entire city. Explain, and I think I'll go to you, Carol. Explain what you will do to become aware of the issues and problems in all of the neighborhoods of Richmond, California.
Well, I will get out more into the community and more neighborhood councils, and I plan on doing some door knocking to talk with the residents and see how I can help them to improve Richmond overall.
Wonderful. Yeah, Diego, grab that. What would you do to find out what the issues are in the particular neighborhoods in Richmond?
Of course, continue doing what I'm doing. And one of the things that I'm good at is outreach to the community. Make sure that they get involved in the process. Not only that I'm aware of what the neighborhoods are, but también hablo español bien, en español y inglés, so I'm able to reach out to a lot of the constituents out there.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Hand that back there to Demolis Johnson. Same question, sir.
Well, thank you for your question. And as we all know, Richmond has some very robust neighborhood councils. So one of the first things that I would do in order to become familiar with the different communities and their issues is meeting with their neighborhood councils. Those councils are not only robust, but they're full of individuals who know what's going on the ground, and then also continuing my phone banking and canvassing and hosting forums past Election Day, which is why one of my platforms is community engagement. After November 6th, you will continue to see Demolis Johnson in the streets, knocking on doors, phone banking, and holding community forums. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Martinez, would you address that question, please?
Absolutely. A lot of people in Richmond know that I have an open door policy on my business card. I have my personal cell phone, which I answer immediately, if not sooner. Can you imagine that? I also go to a lot of the community events. I talk to people, and I even talk to business people to find out what it is works for them, what doesn't work for them. So I'm here to represent everyone. I'm here to help them move Richmond forward.
Very good. Ms. Recinos.
Hello. I would like to, focus on going to the neighborhood councils that are currently active and also make a plan to participate or bring together those communities where neighborhood councils aren't active, because those are going to be folks who are very hard to reach. I also would like to consider long-term that we hold council meetings in rotation in partnership with different neighborhood councils and organizations. Thank you.
Very good. And then you guys need to listen, because these are the people who you will be potentially voting for. Mr. David.
Thank you very much for the question, and everybody out there. Look, I've been living in Richmond with my family for 18 years, 9 years in the community, raising money for local schools. And what I've found over the last few months of doing collaborative solutions workshops in the community is that the one thing that's constant out there, whether it's talking about illegal dumping, human trafficking on 23rd Street, business opportunity, housing, they're saying that they're not being heard. They're not being heard by city government. Now, I'm not trashing city government because I want to be a part of it and I think they do great things, but we need to hear from the ground up. And one of the first things that we have is the neighborhood councils that we've discussed. But how do people get there? We need to have a centralized location where people know about all the things that are going on and that they have access to it. Earlier today, I was speaking with a friend of mine who had mentioned, hey, how about a town crier? Maybe an electronic town crier. So I would strengthen those up. I would also go out to and have the city council meet in various areas throughout the city. Instead of having everybody come to city council, why don't we go to the neighborhoods? So with that, I'm fired up, ready to go. Thank you very much for the question.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Eleanor Thompson, running for City Council. And what I would do, I would also go to the council for those who haven't yet active, and they have meetings, the neighborhood council. And I do that now. I'm over about 6 or 7 centers in the area, so I'll be going to their neighborhood council meetings. Also, I work throughout Richmond. I did this for over 50 years since I've been in the city of Richmond. I work on the south side with youth and their parents. I work in the North Richmond with their parents and in the Iron Triangle. I started out in the Iron Triangle, working with youth and young people, Social Progress, Inc. We've been doing this for many, many years, and we've been making connection with the family, not just the youth, but with their parents also. So we will continue what we're doing, but we'll add a little bit more on. Thank you very much.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Cesar Zepeda. And what I would do is continuing to do what I've already been doing. I've been out in the community for many years. At one point, people thought I had a twin because they were trying to figure out how can I be at every community event when there's so many around the community. I make it, even if I'm there for a little bit, I make sure that the community knows that I'm in support and I go somewhere else. It is important to listen to every piece of the community because we're all diverse. The problems at Hilltop are very different than the problems in the Iron Triangle, than the problems in the hills and the problems by the wetlands. We have to listen to them. What we need to do as well is not just knock on doors and campaign for their vote this November. We have to go and knock on doors year-round as community leaders, and not just asking for votes, but asking people to get involved, because that's how we build community, by getting everyone involved in picking ourselves back up. Thank you.
Very good. Give them a hand. That was a very well addressed question. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. She says, I have something to say.
Thank you. Before I got involved in politics, I would always complain and say, how come these representatives are not coming out to the community? Because a lot of people cannot make it to city council meetings. Some people have 2 jobs. Some people don't understand the language. And then I got more involved into the city council meetings, and I realized that they also have a full-time job, and realistically, they can't really go out to the communities. So what I would do is I would want to form a committee, what I would call foot soldiers, who actually go out and ask the community what their issues are and report back to us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Very good. My next question is about business, and I think it's very important for us to begin to start talking about how we can do better about businesses in the city. The other cities around Richmond have thriving malls, grocery stores, other businesses that are doing really well. What would you do as a council member to help our businesses thrive, help the businesses that might not be doing so well, get grants, get things that they need so that the businesses in Richmond can thrive? We'll go right back to you, Vicki.
I would advocate for them at the state level too, look for grants, direct that to the appropriate people to look for grants for them to better their businesses, and talk to them, ask for feedback. Why do they think they're failing? Things like that.
Very good. Carol.
So I would make them aware of the various foundations that do donate, that there's the Wellness Foundation and the Richmond Community Foundation and various other foundations throughout the Bay Area. And also, some of the sports teams may also want to help, so that would be one of my priorities.
Mr. Diego.
What I would do is definitely start doing an education forum for them. Most of the business owners, especially small mom and pop businesses, are not aware of all the resources that we have. And they don't have the education to move forward. So a lot of them, with the small amount of money that they have, they trying to open a big business, but they don't understand that there are a lot of other resources there for them, that they don't need a lot of that money. So if we can educate a lot of the business owners on how to be able to take advantage of those resources, most of our businesses will grow and thrive. Most of the business owners, especially on the corridor of 23rd Street, are very uneducated on the resources that we have. So what I would do is do trainings for them to be able to have them take advantage of everything that is out there for them.
I'm going to give you a follow-up question
Sure.
for that. What kind of resources can they find?
Business loans. A lot of them don't know how to grow because they're not aware of the business loans that are available for them, especially with banks. But the other thing is also how to monitor their expenses. Most of them purchase a lot of supplies that they're not even needed, and they don't allocate that information to the customers. So a lot of their information that they give is just sales, and don't have that customer service that is required. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Well, some of the resources that exist that I would like to help expand to grow small businesses are the matching loan funds and the revolving loan funds here in the city of Richmond, making sure that everyone has access and that we can increase those loans so that way small businesses can continue to grow, and then also partnering with the Renaissance Center for Entrepreneurship. Right, making sure that we go to neighborhood, hosting workshops and creating opportunities for everyday residents to learn more about how to open a business, manage a business, and grow a business. But in terms of large businesses, I have an aggressive plan to recruit more industry to come to Richmond with livable wage jobs. And so in addition to small business, it's a multi-business approach. Not just including small businesses and family businesses. We have to make sure that we grow the number of industries that we have in the city of Richmond, providing livable wage jobs with worker protection and good benefits for our families.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Yes. Our city has an economic development department of one person, Janet Johnson. It's such a gigantic job that she can only do her job reactively, and we need an economic department that can act proactively, someone who can go out there and look for opportunities to bring to Richmond. When I went to East Bay Economic Development Forum, I found out that our city had actually dropped out of it because we didn't have the manpower to go. So as a council member, I took it upon myself to go to this meeting to find out what they had to offer. And they're actually wanting to reach into Richmond to help us uplift our businesses. So as a council member, I'm retired, which means that I do my council job 24/7. And I go to all these meetings and I do a lot of networking, trying to find people to bring into Richmond.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Recinos.
Hello, everyone. I believe that in order to increase our small business support, we have to do a deep investment. So that's ramping up and providing grants for facade improvement, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs are saying that they need. They want to be able to have really good marketing, to be able to bring in clients who are walking down the street. I also think we have an opportunity to provide a concierge type service and add some capacity to Janet Johnson's work, where people can be deployed to walk up and down our commercial corridors and provide that research information to Janet. And I think that that can be in partnership with some of the universities that we have here, as well as some of the loan support that we need to provide. People have to have access to matching loans if they are denied from banks, as well as crowdsourcing. And right now I'm working with Calle 23, 23rd Street in order to create culturally relevant materials so they can access those Kiva loans in the languages that they need. And I hope that that will serve as a model for us to expand to other languages.
Thank you. David.
Thank you very much. So having been a business person for most of my adult life and actually seeing a balance sheet and actually having to pay for employees and both succeeding and failing, right? I think some part of my success has been I've failed faster than anybody else. You learn the most from your failures. So the first thing that I would do is to advocate for a bit of expansion, if you will, of the Economic Development Office in the city of Richmond. Bring in resources like the Richmond Chamber of Commerce, as mentioned previously, the Renaissance Center, and other entities that when somebody comes to the city of Richmond to apply for a business permit, that they would have all of the resources right there at their fingertips. They would not have to run around the city and figure out what they're supposed to do. They would have advisors right there on site. The city's revolving loan fund really only applies to businesses who have been in business for years, so they have revenue. So what do we do for those businesses that are brand new? We find ways to incent those new businesses to start up, that is permit lowering, reducing the fees, to the barriers to get permits, business permits. Also, if the businesses that are here right now, they're the economic engine of Richmond. We could go out and look for other businesses to come to Richmond all day long, but we have exciting, wonderful, beautiful businesses here that are paying for employees to be here and are contributing to the economic vitality of the city.
Thank you.
Is the time, are you the timer? All right.
Yeah, I'm your timepiece right here.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson, please.
So much stuff. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we had a workshop, I guess about 3 or 4 months ago, and that workshop was about how to open your own business and how to make your money count for you. And it was for youth, children, and adults, and it was at the auditorium. And we're going to be having another one. And it's about, we had realtors there, we had mortgage people who could loan you money. And the main thing is we have the small business grant here in the city of Richmond. We need to make it so that those who are opening up, these entrepreneurs who are coming into the city and they want to open up businesses, we need to fix it so that they don't have to wait a year to have connection or how to get that money. We want them to be able to get the money right away. We don't want them to have to wait a year. Right now, if you have a small business, you have to be in business for a year before you will be able to tap into that money. We want it to be available to them, you know, like right now.
Very good. Thank you.
It's about the economic engine of Richmond. It's about the perception of Richmond. We have new owners to the mall. And as we know, it has been very difficult to get someone to purchase this mall, to stay here, to making sure that they give the community the opportunities we need. In a city of over 100,000, we have 0 grocery stores. In a city of 100,000 people, we have 1 person over the economic development department. The city of San Pablo has about 25,000. They've got 6 people. We are not investing in what's going to move our city forward. We keep putting things aside and hoping the tree grows. We're not watering the tree. We're not taking care of the tree. We just want the tree to give us money. Before we do anything else, it's about economic engine, turning it on. From there, you start talking to the small businesses. They're having a hard time getting their applications through because it's 1 person or a handful of people trying to apply for that. And they're not able to get it through, so they can't open up their business. Across the street here, someone left to another city because they would pick up the phone for her permits within 24 hours. In the city of Richmond, it took weeks. That is money and revenue that we are missing. So we have to think about this holistically and start from number 1. Thank you.
All right. Give them a hand. Wonderful questions, answers to the questions. Miss Kara up there in the wonderful black and white dress, she will be holding your time signs to let you know how much time you got left. So sorry, David, but That's how we'll do it from now on, all right? Okay, this question is interesting because a lot of you had just mentioned the young lady who works by herself, and we talk about staffing. The staff of the city of Richmond, of course, is doing their best to provide service to the residents. It's hard to retain qualified staff because staff is expected to cover the shortage of staff by doing the job of several people. If you were elected as city council person, what would you propose to change the situation? Let's go back to you and go back the other way. Hand that back, Mr. Mayor, please. Thank you.
All right. I mean, it goes back to the same thing. We have no money. In the last city budget, we started with a $9 million deficit. We had to make cuts. All those cuts are not going to take care of your weeds. They are not going to help with public safety. We're going to have more crime, we're going to have more weeds because we have less staff. We have less staff, we have more weeds, we have more crime, we have less people coming into the city of Richmond to try to invest here. Having less investment means less money. For the next budget cycle, we're going to have even more cuts. Right? So we're going in the wrong direction. We have to stop that from going to the wrong direction. Let's bring it back up again. One way to help along the way is as community. Let's help out a little bit, right? We already volunteer, and that's just a small chunk. But the city has to be able to use our tax money properly to get us back into the right direction. So again, let's stop the ball from rolling the wrong way. Let's bring it back again.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, please.
I believe that the city has money because whenever they want money for something, they find it. And if they need money to make sure that their employees are doing their job properly and hire the right people, can find the money. Because when you go to the council meeting and you look on the agenda, you see all this money that they're getting ready to give to somebody. And a lot of these people are just consulting, coming in to give them a little advice when they can get that same advice inside. Because I encountered an issue with an employee because I think that they should not be in that spot because they don't know how to talk to people. But I won't say nothing about that. But I think the city has the money.
So the first thing that I would do is talk to the staff. So the staff is out there every day doing the job, working hard, and we're up here making ideas up. Why don't we go to them and ask them what great ideas they have for saving money, for efficiency? The second thing is simply do an efficiency audit. What are we spending our money on and what could we spend it on better? And find ways to bring the community on board to work with the city so that we're growing from the ground up. Thank you very much.
Our employees are our biggest assets. They have the solutions. I think that they've been asking for an increase in strategic partnerships. We have a lot of great organizations in the city that we can partner with to increase our capacity. We can also take stock of our management to service line ratio. Are we having the people that are providing the services? Is there enough of them? Are we making sure that that's a good ratio? Also increasing our revenue streams, increasing our tax base from large businesses and a lot of opportunities that maybe we've been underutilizing. Thank you.
Richmond has a unique problem, and that is the fact that of a city our size. For instance, Richmond and Berkeley have the same population approximately, but Richmond has 3 times the land mass. And that land mass isn't concentrated like it is in Berkeley, but it's spread out. Which means that in order for our city to provide the services, we need more people to go to all these areas. For instance, I get a lot of complaints about not enough police. And we don't have enough police because of the area that each police department, each police beat has to cover. When we have cities like Memphis, who is de-annexing areas because they know they cannot provide the services that those areas are expecting from taxes. We're considering annexing areas with a built-in deficit. So the question is, are we moving in the right direction? Are we finding ways to provide more services, or are we diluting services? Because this deficit's going to come out of the money that pays for the services that we have now. So we are doing things to promote more income. For instance, we put on the ballot a vacant property building tax, which will provide services for cleanup, abatement, and to deal with the homeless. So we need more things like that.
So this is actually why the recruitment of large industries to the city of Richmond is important. We need industries in this city that can contribute greatly to our tax base. Without putting that, our business tax is one of the primary ways of revenue streams that we can increase, because we have business tax, property tax, and utility use tax here in the city of Richmond, and those are the three ways that the city makes money. And so without increasing the property tax or the utility use tax, we have to look at the business tax. And without increasing the business tax in the city of Richmond, that means recruiting more businesses to come, so that way they're contributing more to that tax stream. We have more money in the city's coffers than we can pay our employees a livable wage and make sure that it's competitive to other Bay Area cities, and also begin to take care of our pension problem as well. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes. I would see this problem and tackle it a different way. It's not about the money or the staffing. It's about the staff that we already have currently working. Is how do they get along? How can they get along to be able to do more with what they have? And I say this starts from the top. City council members, if they're not getting along, then that trickles down to staff. And then staff is not getting along. And then from there, it trickles down to even commissions or other neighborhood councils. If we were able to make sure that they can trust each other, be able to give them the resources to have the supplies that is needed to be able to do their job correctly, I would say that the people will do more. I'm a business owner, and the quality work that we do and the customer service that we have, it wasn't based on if we have money or not. It was based on how well the staff get along. So I'm saying it trickles down from the top of city council members to be able to get along so they can go ahead and have a good direction to the staff.
So I think in order to attract more city staff, we need to accentuate the positive things about Richmond. So it is important to note the challenges, but if we focus more on the positive aspects of our city, which we have a lot of great potential, and also have a living wage, and just encourage them to come and work there where there's no corrupt staff, because that's a huge problem. I'm just reminded about Tim Jones, who was the head of the Housing Authority, and all his staff was corrupt, and they cost the city of Richmond a lot of money. So we need more staff with integrity and, accentuate the positive.
Ms. Ramirez.
Hi. I would create a volunteer program that requires people to have a background check and commit to at least 1 year so they can get experience and also help the city at the same time.
Very good, very good. Some very, very good points there. All right. We're going to bring the mayoral candidates in. I just hate to see them sitting here chomping at the bit, wanting to get in here. So we're going to bring Mayor Tom Butt and mayoral candidate Melvin Williams in with a question. This is an interesting question, and I'll start with this just hopefully to throw you a curveball. Cannabis is really big in the country, and a lot of states are coming up with different ideas to use cannabis as a form of bringing revenue into the city. Mayor Butt, I'll start with you. What do you think about using cannabis to bring revenue into the city of Richmond?
You know, in 2010, Richmond was way ahead of its time. We passed a 5% tax on cannabis. We were one of the first cities to do it. And we've been collecting that tax now for several years, but it only applied to the 3 dispensaries we have. Now we have a lot of people around Richmond that are in the cannabis cultivation business, a lot of them, and hardly any of them are paying that tax. If we could bring them into the fold, get them permitted, licensed, and get their money on the tax roll, it could actually mean millions of dollars for the city of Richmond. And to tell you the truth, I don't know why we're having such a hard time doing it. You know, it's something that our planning staff, police department, code enforcement needs to collaborate on. But if we can bring these people onto the tax roll, it'll be a lot of revenue. And so, you know, at the time we passed that, I advocated for a 10% tax. And my colleagues on the city council thought that was too much. They reduced it to 5%. I wish we'd kept that 10%. We would have millions of dollars more revenue if we'd done that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Willis.
Yeah, thank you. So right now our staff is in the middle of working on our ordinance to get in compliance with the new state laws that just passed back in 2016 so we can get it ready for adult use. So I have had, since the state laws were passed, I have had folks with businesses into cultivations or dispensaries that have approached saying that they wanted to open up a dispensary or some cultivation or a farm or greenhouse, and my questions were always like, are you going to institute local hire to make sure that there are good jobs available for folks? Does a background check matter to you? Does a high school degree matter to you, recognizing that we do have a population that are high school dropouts? And also one of the other things is just making sure that wherever these places are going to be located at, that there is an outreach effort and education effort to let community members know like what could potentially be coming in their backyard, and getting that input first before we make any decisions, because there still is a stigma and a lot to learn around it. So there needs to be a lot of elements to come into play before just moving forward on that as a for sure thing idea.
Very good. Why don't you stay standing? I'll let you take this second question. It was really in line with the question I asked the council members. Richmond's population will increase by approximately 1,000 people by the year 2020. If you are elected mayor, Mr. Willis, what will you propose to provide enough staff to accommodate the increase in Richmond that is already receiving limited services?
One of the things we'll be working with the planning and building department, because that's where a lot of the proposals for housing do come forward, but also making sure that we have an affordable housing plan as well with that population increase, because we want to be able to welcome new Richmond residents without displacing our existing residents that have been here for generations. So it is going to be like troubleshooting our planning and building department. Do proposals find it easy to be able to provide and build more affordable housing? Does staff feel like they have enough staffing to deal with the amount of projects? And also in 2020, the reformation of Prop 13 is going to be on the ballot, and if that passes, that's going to be $10 billion extra dollars to California services. So making sure that the city of Richmond is lined up to get those resources and adequately staffing our levels and providing the services as needed. So it's going to be working with planning and building, identifying projects that are very inclusive, that are development without displacement, and making sure we're in line with funding from the state or county to be able to build these developments so we can be ready and prepare ourselves.
Mayor Butt.
The reduction in staff that we've been seeing the last few years is primarily due to one thing, and that is that pension costs are rising faster than revenues. So what's happening is we're paying pensions instead of people. It's estimated that in the next 5 years, the pension cost to the city is going to be 40 to 50% of our budget. So that's something we got to deal with, and it's not just a city problem, it's a statewide problem. And we're going to have to collaborate with people across the state to do that. The second part of it is we need to bring in more revenue. And revenue comes from 3 sources in Richmond. It comes from real estate taxes, from retail sales taxes, and from utility user taxes. And all of those are a function of the level of business that's going on in Richmond. We have to support our business community. When I became mayor, they said, what kind of mayor are you going to be? I said, I'm going to be the business mayor. And I said that because our previous administration had essentially ignored business for 8 years. The first thing we did was prepare a guide to how to start a business in Richmond. The second thing is we started a business roundtable that we do quarterly to find out why businesses that come to Richmond are succeeding and try to use that model other places. The third thing we did is we raised $100,000 to pay for a marketing and branding study so that existing businesses could promote themselves and try to bring up the level of business they do and consequently the level of revenue that comes into the city. So the key to this really that is under our control is to focus on our business community, try to expand it, and try to expand that level of revenue that they bring in.
Very good. Let's thank the mayoral candidates for their input on those questions. We're going to ask one more question of the city council members, and then after that we're going to do a Q&A. So if there are a few of you, we will have this mic ready for you to come up and ask a question. We'll let a couple of the city council members address one question, and then we'll go to the next question, let a couple more candidates address the question. All right, city council member candidates, what will you do to bring more transparency to the police department of Richmond, California? Let's start right in the middle back there.
Currently, we're going to actually do a study to review management styles. And I would like to continue the process of not only reviewing the management styles and what's going on, because this is a culture problem. We have to change the culture. We have to make the employees, our police officers, understand that there's a very high level of expectation that the community has. And that comes with accountability, that comes with really good and deep relationships in the community, and it's gonna come with how are you managing your team? How are you connecting with your fellow coworkers? How is that translating into your interaction with the community? And so I really think that once we analyze kind of what is going on with the staff and realize what is causing this lack of transparency, this lack of communication with the public, then we should be able to start having that conversation on building a plan so that they're more accountable and more comfortable to coming out and saying, I think my coworker might be doing something wrong. I think my coworker might be doing something that is not what we all agreed to do. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, we have a police department that before Chief Magnus got here was working under a good old boy network where, you know, people got promotions from people that they knew, and behavior was not monitored. When Chris Magnus came in, he made promotions be evidence-based. He made sure that people knew what the job was and was doing the job according to the way he thought it should be, which is community policing. Now, this created a divide in the culture of the police department. There were the good old boy network guys, and then there were the people who had embraced the community policing. So this sort of thing needs to be reevaluated. I attended a conference with Local Progress, and one of the things that they're doing is they're doing a statewide evaluation of police departments and police department procedures. So I volunteered to take on that project for the city of Richmond. So I will be working with other cities throughout the state of, throughout the U.S. on evaluating our police department, finding out best practices for our department as well as for others.
Very good. Thank you so much. Mr. Johnson, please.
Once again, thank you for your question. I'm a member of the Citizens Police Review Commission, and one of the first things that I would do is make sure that that commission is strong. There are some weak points, and we have to make sure that the recommendations that's coming out of that commission promotes transparency. And one of the ways that we can do more to promote transparency is making sure that our police department is using 21st century technology to communicate with the public, and also using things such as Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. For example, when Dinah Becton first assumed office as the Contra Costa district attorney, one of the first things she did was create a Facebook page. And because the previous administration had so much turmoil attached to it, that Facebook page was seen as very proactive in the world in the terms of transparency. So one thing I would like to make sure is that our police department is using 21st century technology to not only be transparent, but to interact with the community and get in front of some of the things that, some of the rumors and some of the hate, some of the things that's going on. But the first thing I feel we need to do is make sure that our Citizens Police Review Commission is strong enough to send recommendations to the police department, and they have to follow those recommendations instead of it just being, hey, I think you should.
Okay, Mr. Garcia.
Yes, I'm also a member of the Citizens Police Review Commission. What I would do is I would invite the commission to actually be part, or actually get them to City Hall and make it a community meeting. Most of the commission meetings are very small, so I will get the head departments and the chief of police to be able to give these reports in public and be able to engage the community to be part of those meetings, to be able to have that transparency that we're talking about. And I definitely agree with Demis in regards to using the 21st century technology and be able to host these meetings live, to be able to invite the community to be engaged in those types of topics. So I will definitely make sure that the Citizens Police Review Commission meeting be at City Hall.
Lady Carol.
So I'm sure that some of us, or many of us, are aware of the controversies that have involved the Richmond police, including the officers involved with Celeste Guap and the unjustified shooting of P.D. Perez. So I don't think the transparency is so much of a problem as the lack of integrity. So we need to encourage them to hire more officers with integrity, because the officer who shot P.D. Perez had 3 warnings in his file that he not be put out on patrol, and he was put out anyway and took P.D. Perez's life. So I can't help but wonder what other officers have issues like that in their files that we don't know of, and they're out there patrolling our streets. So we need more integrity along with the transparency.
Well, how do you propose that we find officers and hire officers with integrity?
Well, they need better psychiatric examinations and better background checks. And
okay.
Hi, I believe it's more of a lack of communication. I would encourage the residents to provide feedback, good feedback, negative feedback, and then have the police department look at that feedback and implement that in their trainings. I know, for example, they do Night Out with Cops, maybe have a table there where they gather feedback in writing about positive and negative things that the community believes they should work on, and just implement that in their training. Also, implement mental health training. That's very important. In the job that I work at, they work with high school students and middle school students, implementing mental health to reduce suspension rates. Instead of suspending them, you implement mental health. That's been working well. Maybe have them learn more about how to speak to people who may have mental health problems, things like that.
Very good. We're going to throw the mayoral candidates in the fray. This is perfect for you guys.
You know, I'm hearing a lot of complaints about our police department. Don't forget that 3 years ago, the Attorney General and the Obama administration came to Richmond to recognize our police department as a leader in community policing. Now, no police department is perfect. Ours is not perfect. But folks, they deserve our support. And I think that most of my colleagues on the city council are suspicious of police. They're critical of police. They don't support the police, but they deserve our support. And, you know, the complaints I get from people, you know, people write me, call me, email me. They want more patrols. They're sick of getting their cars broken into, getting their cars stolen, people doing donuts in the street. They want more cops on the street. And so we have to support a robust police department, and we have to make sure that they're out there when people need them. And continually criticizing them and talking about cultural problems and them not being, not understanding what the people want, that's not what we need to do. We need to support them and support them fully. If they screw up, sure, we need to talk about it. But these people deserve our support.
Mayoral candidate Willis.
So I'm a community organizer, been a community organizer with Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment for the past 7 years. It's a 501c3 and there's a 501c4. Reason I brought that up is because when our previous district attorney, Mark Peterson, had to resign due to 13 counts of corruption, we were involved in engaging with who the new candidates were going to be, and we also endorsed Dinah Becton, and we got out into the streets to door knock and make sure that people knew about the first African-American woman run for district attorney and made sure that she won. So any issues and concerns that do come up with our police, we made it a part of the conversation with her to say, have constant communication and feedback with us, so when issues come up, we can have a relationship with the district attorney's office and community to deal with those issues. And one of my colleagues who unfortunately passed away, he was working on an effort actually, and I was talking to somebody about this a couple days ago, to actually have community members be involved and give an input into the hiring practices of our police department. Bring community in. What do communities want to see from their officers, and have their voices be heard during that hiring process. And we need to work with our city attorney and check for other legal liability, because there are state laws that do prohibit us from making things as transparent as we want to be with the police department. So what are creative steps that we can take? Can we get police officers to give out a card every time they stop somebody, no matter what it is, whether it's just saying, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Or if you're stopping them for some sort of infraction. And also working with the Police Review Commission that was already restructured to make it a bit more of a transparent process. If there's ways to improve that, then let's just do it.
Okay, Mr. Zepeda, right behind you. There you go.
So Richmond has a great community policing. We have to keep that up. A few years ago, I took a ride with our police. I got a ride around Richmond, got to see what dangers they go into, what things they do to help the community. Right? So we can't always vilify. We have to be able to support them, because at the end of the day, when you dial 911, you're going to get a police officer coming to help you. So, and I know again that there's might be bad apples in there, but you have to be able to work. You have to be able to have conversations. That is a service that we need. Here I get emails every single day from all the business owners at Hilltop telling me when there's a break-in, telling me that the car got broken in, their business got broken in. We need more police, but we have to have that conversation with them as well to make sure that our community is safe. Because we can't treat everyone the same. I am working with them to establish an LGBTQI liaison, so that way they know how to speak to different parts of our community. And that is one community that's less known. When they call the police, they are at the bottom of the totem pole. Because you could be someone of color, and you might already be at the bottom. And if you're LGBT, you're at the bottom of the bottom. So we need to have someone there that can have those conversations and be able to understand every single community that we have in Richmond. We are so diverse. We have to start that conversation with them and continue having the community policing, the coffee with the cop, the ice cream with the cop, the just hanging out with the cop. We are not the threat, and neither should they be. So we have to be able to work together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Thompson.
When I served on the police commission, I remember Miss B. Robertson, she created, lemonade with a cop. So I think that was a good idea. Also, I think that the officers should listen to the community. I sat on the committee when we had our chief, William Lansdowne, and I believe that was the best community policing that we ever had in the city. I remember my children used to go out to the gate and wait for the officer in the evening who did the walk by or the riding the bike by. They would go out to the gate and they would wait just so they could wave at him. And he would come over and speak with them. So I think we need to have that communication now with our officers, where they can go out into the community, talk to the people, and not have them have to come to them. And if you would call Chief Lansdowne, you could always get to talk with him. So I think we need to have that communication, that connection again.
Thank you. David.
I think the hardest job in the world today is being a modern-day police officer. I took an 8-week course with the City of Richmond's Police Department called the Community Safety Ambassador Program, which any of you could sign up for and take a course. 8 weeks, 4 hours a night, 4 hours on a weekend. What I learned was we have an Office of Officer Accountability. We have a community policing program. We have all of these resources that are nationwide recognized. When I took a ride along with Officer President, and yes, that's her name, she said, I lived in Texas, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And my uncle said, come out to California. Maybe there's this opportunity at Richmond Police Department. When she saw that we were doing community policing as a core part of our police department, she said, I want to be a part of that. I want to work in a community where the police is not seen as an adversary, but is seen as a friend and a resource. On the budget cycle, there were 12 positions that were cut from the police department. Additionally, there are people in the police department, men and women who work every day who want to go home to their families, who only want to be loved and respected by them and their community, who are worried about their lives, who are sitting there going, I hope the community loves me. I hope they care about me. And what those people, there's 30 people who are on a disabled or sick, or people who want to go on vacation. Now we're paying for mandatory overtime that costs more than hiring a new police officer. So we have a great police department. They're even transparent on social media on Nextdoor. So what we need is to connect the dot and work as a full community of 112,000 people with 178 sworn police officers that want to make Richmond great.
Thank you. Thank you. Give the candidates a hand. Very well tackled. We're going to, at this time, allow some of our audience members to come and ask a question. If you could make a line here and we can have you address the council members. Council members will have 2 people, maybe 3, address each question. Since the mic is with you, David, we'll have you tackle this first question. Your name and your question, sir.
My name's Dennis Dalton. I'm talking about rent control and just cause. This is a program brought in, modeled on Santa Monica, and was supposed to be applied to Richmond to improve conditions for renters. It's turned out to be very controversial. It's hired bureaucrats who make $100,000-$200,000 a year to apply it. Many of the folks, the ordinary citizens of Richmond who have little mom and pop rentals, are getting hammered. There's a lot of problems with it. I'm asking the candidates, are there problems with it, and do we need to improve it somehow?
Dave.
Thank you very much for that question. So this was an ordinance that was voted on by the people of Richmond. It's a law. So one of the things that I would have loved to have seen was before before rent control got enacted, was that it would have had a conversation like we're doing in our collaborative solutions workshops. We've had 9 of them now, where you would have brought the small mom and pop owners. There's 75% of the rental units in Richmond are owned by mom and pop renters or owners. The problem with it now is if the rents were too high, now you've moved the affordability issue over to the owners, the small mom and pop owners, and you've told them now you have to pay more additional fees to keep this rental going. What we've seen is, in fact, that the owners of those properties have sold. They're out. So what we're now seeing is a shrinking of the market. So affordability has gotten worse. So I don't have the ability to go back and wave the magic wand and remove it. I do like the tenant protections of the ordinance, protecting the renters to have somebody to be able to talk to about their issues with a landlord, and vice versa as a positive thing. I didn't see the timer, so.
No problem.
But I'm looking at you.
You're looking at me. You're all right. And we're going to now go to Virginia to answer that question, please.
Hi. So they actually created a rent board where they do take into account mom and pop homeowners. For example, the rent control and just cause ordinance makes sure that the owner gets a fair share of return on their investment, and therefore if they feel that they're not and they want to request to increase the rent above the CPI percentage, which is right now about 3.7%, that they can go to the rent board that exists in the city and they can request that. And I think, does that answer the question?
That's fine.
Also, there is this law, this state law, this law at the state level called Costa that prohibits apartments built after 1995 or single-family homes to have rent controlled. And that is what is allowing, impeding rent control to cover all of Richmond and also create discrepancies.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question. Hello, what's your name and your question?
My name is Miss Dandy, and I have a statement and a question, and this question is probably going to be very broad. I am Richmond. And I see people up here that I know you work in Richmond, I know mostly everybody up there. Have you walked around and stayed in Richmond in places? Have you gone to North Richmond and the Iron Triangle not before 5 o'clock, after 9 o'clock, and walked in there? Have you been with those people? Richmond is not a family-friendly, child-friendly city. We have nothing for these children to do except go to school and go to the after-school programs. What can you do to bring and make Richmond a child, family-friendly city where they will come in and want to be here and want to stay here and feel safe every night, just not before 5, after 9 p.m., every day in Richmond? What can you do to make the city safe for me, my family, and the rest of Richmond?
Great question, Diego.
Excellent question. I've been living in Richmond for 40 years, and 23 of those years been outreaching, been walking the streets. People know me by my first name. Actually, most people even know me by my nickname. So I'm not afraid to walk these streets. One of the things that I've been doing for 23 years is been able to promote not just outreach, but also a safe haven for kids, after-school programs. When I was working with the police department as a crime prevention specialist, we did all the analysis and information about how to keep the kids safe during, after, and before school. One of the things that I would do is open up the recreation centers to be able to bring our leaders into the community, to be able to teach our youth to become entrepreneurs, healthy eating, to be able to grow the sports. It's an embarrassment to say that Richmond only has one soccer field. And we're in a deficit of 23 soccer fields with 3,400 kids registered to do that. I would make sure that we can open all these empty lots, make sure to be able to get everyone who is in need of services. I walk the streets and talk to the homeless people. I bring them into my shop to talk to them and see what is it that they need. Sometimes they only need a place to shower and an address and a phone to be able to use. So what I would do is make sure that we can go out there and outreach to the community and really listen to their needs.
Very good. Mr. Johnson, please.
Well, to answer your first question, I most definitely have walked around every neighborhood in Richmond past nighttime. I'm fourth generation Richmond, California. My parents are from here, my grandparents are from here, my great-grandparents are from here. There's nowhere in Richmond where I'm afraid to go or won't go. So that's to answer your first question. And to answer your second question, most definitely want to create more programs, especially when I was growing up. I remember all of the Little League teams, all of the basketball games, and, just Richmond sports, period. We had a lot of athletes come out of Richmond because we had such a robust sports program here in the city. And, I had something for kids to do after school, and it also helped cut down on the violence in this city when kids from North Richmond was going to go play kids from Central in baseball. This Sunday, we just had Soulful Sunday, and I see two of the organizers here today, and we need events like that. And as you know, Miss Dandy, what we do at Richmond High School, create events. Make stuff happen for students, so they'll have somewhere to go after school. I love the RPAL, Girls Inc., and all of those other programs, but we do need to create more programs here in the city of Richmond for students.
Why don't you take that question, young lady?
Hello. I think one of the most exciting things to do is to get to know your neighbors and then get to know your neighbors in the next neighborhood and build that coalition. We all can take care of each other. We're our most important friends and allies, especially for our kids. The kids on our block can't just be the kids of your neighbor. They have to be our collective kids. And I think with the implementation of measures E and K, we will be able to create a Department of Families. We can finally have a little bit deeper investment in some of those programs that community members already put on with their volunteer time and beef them up so that our kids feel like if they feel unsafe, they will ask, they will demand, what is my city doing for me? And we have to listen. We have to provide them with the space and the opportunity to do what they need. Do you like sports? Do you want to try theater? Do you want to just, play with some dogs? We have to be able to provide access to the programs that they need. And so I get very excited about us building a big coalition and programs and some goals around how we're going to support our youth and our kids.
Very good. Can we have both mayoral candidates address that question, please?
Well, one of the things that you all can do that we can't, and that is you can vote on the real estate transfer tax that will actually put millions into kids programs. It's called Kids First. It'll be on the ballot. It only needs 51% to pass. So that's up to all you voters. You pass that, millions are going to go into kids programs. The second thing is that when I became mayor, I restarted an initiative that had been put on the shelf for 8 years. Previous mayors had run a golf tournament and had donated tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to youth sports. And during Gail McLaughlin's tenure, she stopped doing that. So we started it up again. And we have 2 golf tournaments, and then we had another special outing at East Brother Island. And we've actually raised tens of thousands of dollars that we've given to almost every sports team in Richmond. And we're going to keep doing that. So, we've got to support youth projects, got to support sports. She says I'm done.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Willis.
Yeah, definitely an answer to the first question. I've walked all over Richmond at all times of the night. Sometimes it was scary, but I still did it. But it's already been said a couple times. We took measures to put K&E on the June ballot, which passed, which is going to dedicate 3% of Richmond's general fund towards youth programs and services in the city with community oversight. And we unanimously, at a special meeting at the city council, put a luxury transfer tax on the ballot. So for every sale of $1 million of a property transferred in Richmond, that money will bring new revenue into the city, triggering K&E, so we can start rolling on getting 3% of our general fund earmarked for youth programs and services. But it's also, there are groups and small businesses and security guards that I've been talking to that want to do their own little league, that want to start their own sports programs, and they want to get city support and elected official support to make it happen. So it's not only working with those groups and stakeholders to make it happen, but at the same time, y'all got me confused with the done in 3 seconds. Okay, I'm done. Working with community stakeholders to support their efforts as well.
Very good, very good, very good. Thank you so much. We have another question. You guys know this guy. Brother Antoine Cord, how are you, man? All right.
Antoine Cord, longtime Richmond resident activist. So, I've been here a long time, and many of y'all have heard me always crying about ordinances, money, and resources. We ain't did none of those. Tom Butch just said we taxed the marijuana people. A percentage of that money should have went to these youths, to our schools. A percentage of that marijuana money should have went to schools instead of into the city caucus. So what I'm gonna ask all y'all, because we have 4 seats y'all face to talk about, so it takes 4 votes for something to move in this city council. So my question is, we need to move our hiring ordinance like San Francisco. 50% of any job that comes to this city has to be our residents. It has to be our residents, because we're not getting that revenue because people are coming from out of state to come in and get our money, and it ain't staying here. So if I can say to this council, will you dedicate our vote for you to bring that ordinance from 25% to 50% to make sure to take care of our residents of Richmond, California?
Mr. Zepeda.
Mr. Cloyd, the answer is yes. But along with that as well, we have to be able to educate. As you know, this year, actually it was last year, that the governor signed a bill to make first-year college free. Contra Costa Community College, is one of the first college districts to adopt it. So going forward, any student can go to Contra Costa Community College for free for the first year. So not only do we have to, thank you, we got to thank the governor and our legislators. We have to be able to educate, we have to give them the jobs and the pathway forward. From when I first started getting involved, I knew that it was about Richmond first. We have to take care of our people. We have to be able to, again, roll that ball going forward the right direction. You hire local, you give them the opportunities, our city will thrive. So the answer is yes.
Ms. Johnson. I'm sorry, Ms. Thompson. I'm sorry, excuse me.
That's okay, thank you. Okay, I'm also with Caesar. It is a yes, because I've been fighting. Every time there's money coming into the city and jobs coming, I'm up fighting that Richmond residents should have those jobs. We should make sure that whatever job come into the city, Richmond residents are hired. And we need to go out and check and make sure that they're hiring Richmond residents. They can tell us they're hiring them. That don't mean they hired anyone from Richmond. Because people came in some years ago and they did projects and they said they were hiring Richmond residents. But if you go by there, you don't see nobody that look like us. So I don't know if they did or not, but it didn't look like it.
Mr. Martinez, would you tackle that question, please, sir?
Yeah, definitely I would say 50%, but 50% also requires training Richmond residents. Now, Antoine schooled me on the problem. The problem is that we have a lot of safe return people who have prior convictions, you know, so that X on the box keeps them from getting the job. Also, there's a lot of people who have driving records, and they can't get into a car and get to the jobs that they need to get to. So we need to work on a mechanism to clear these people's records so that they can get the jobs that they need to rebuild their lives.
Very good. We have another question. How you doing, man? What's your name and your question?
How you doing? Okay. What's your name? My answer is, what's that? I'm trying to say.
You're disabled, or
I'm disabled. I'm disabled, and I go to school. I go to school, and it's hard. It's hard for them to find me a job. So I am. It's just like. It just is. it's hard for me to. I mean, they ain't doing nothing, and I just need some. I be trying to.
Support. I got
Yeah.
you.
So,
What's your name?
Daniel.
Daniel. What Daniel is saying is he's disabled. And so what he wants to know is how can you help the disabled people in our community get jobs and get the things that they need to live a sustainable life in the city of Richmond. Why don't you take that, Demolis?
And thank you, Daniel, for being here this evening. One of the first things we can do is partner with organizations that are already helping the disabled population and making sure that we shore those up and make sure that they have everything that they need in this city. I know, for example, at Richmond High School, Sherry Tudis takes the disabled students out to do workforce development and training. And I feel as though that those are programs that we should also have in the city where we have a through our workforce development agency, we create more programs and partnerships for disabled individuals. And also, just to tackle that last question as well, in addition to increasing local hire, we also have to make sure that they're ready to be hired. And so that's why at Richmond High School, we're working to create a school to union pipeline where the students in the woodshop class will be learning the apprenticeship curriculum for the carpenters union. And then that way, when we do increase local hire to 50%, they can't use the excuse that we have unskilled workforce.
All right, all right. Let's have David tackle that question as well.
It's a great question, and thank you very much for the question. We were recently, during the Community Safety Ambassador Program, we went to the Family Justice Center, and it's a navigation center. It's a center that has all of the resources in one place. I propose to have a location much like that so that they can get the services that they need, whether it's jobs, skills, training, workforce development. What is it that you can do? Also on the issue of formerly incarcerated, on September 29th, this next month, we're going to do an expungement workshop, a clean slate day. So we're bringing together the supervisor's office, Rubicon, the mayor's office, we're having the public defender's office all come together, and we're going to have the ability for you to be able to get your rap sheet, if it were, there, live scan and paid for, so that we can help 200, 300 people be able to get jobs now in Richmond. So thank you very much for the question.
Ms. Racinos, why don't you touch that too?
I think that one of the most proactive things that we can do is to educate our employers, to help them learn about what opportunities they have when they partner with the organizations that can provide them with folks who have the skill to be able to complete the job. And so we need to create that match with that employer to feel confident and excited about going to these organizations first. So we need to be the hard advocates for all of our populations that need a little extra boost in order to get the attention of these employers. And so I would be 100% committed to preparing employers to have that education, have the knowledge, and then have the list ready of the folks who are ready to take on that work.
Very good, very good. Thank you for your question, sir. Anyone else have a question? We got time. Yes, ma'am. Why don't you come right over here? How are you? All right, your name and your question.
I'm Sandra Whistler. I live in the North and East. I've been here since '92. First, I wanted to say that it's just fabulous to see a group of candidates that looks like the people of Richmond. I think this is the most diverse panel I've seen in my years here, and that's really exciting. The other thing is that I think that what Mayor Bates was talking about the retirement payments and the pensions and the burden that puts on the city is by far the biggest obstacle we have to doing all of these other fantastic things we want to do. So I'd like to hear from people about ways they think we might begin to deal with that problem, although obviously it's a problem that all the people in the state have, and it's a big issue. But we can't just keep saying, oh, in 2021 we'll deal with it, oh, in 2025 we'll deal with it. I'd be interested in what we can start doing now.
Very good. Carol Johnson, could you get the mic and address that question, please?
So I think that the best thing to do would be to sit down and go over the budget and reprioritize and just see, because the fire and the police departments, they definitely have their pensions, but maybe we need to come up with something that is a percentage based on what the pay was, because not everybody makes the same pay. So I mean, that would be like one of the solutions. And just reprioritizing the budget so that we can, accommodate everyone as much as possible.
Okay, Ms. Ramirez, would you answer that question, please?
Hi, I would try to prioritize it by talking to the adequate departments and reassessing everything again, getting fresh eyes, thinking outside the box, and try to come up with a solution that that helps everyone and does it quickly.
Candidate Willis.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things, at least in terms of supporting our services, is continuing to find creative ideas to bring in revenue so we can be able to fund the services we have. But also, like you said, it's a statewide problem we're all having. So in my mind, it's going to take our local municipality working with our county board of supervisor, other cities that are dealing with this issue, and coming up with a regional collaborative effort to work with our various state entities and even passing resolutions or lobbying our state officials to start to amend some of the things that are gouging cities with pensions. I believe everybody is due for an equitable pension, but making sure that's equitable enough to where it's not gouging cities and people can still retire without having to worry about struggling later on in life. But regional effort is what it's going to take.
Mayor Butt.
You know, I've been around here long enough to remember when Gray Davis started this whole thing. And so the municipal, statewide labor said, we can afford to pay much more for pensions because the value of our investments in PERS is going to go up faster than inflation. And everybody bought into it. I bought into it. And the whole state bought into it. And now we're finding out it doesn't work. To get out of here, what it's going to take is an extraordinary, never before done collaboration between labor and management at city, state, county level, and people are going to have to put their cities and their state above themselves and find a solution. It's the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, it's all going to go down the toilet, and we're going to get to the point where we don't have any city employees. So it's just going to take an extraordinary collaboration that's never happened before, and we're all going to have to participate in it and put our personal issues behind and put the issues of the public up in front.
Mr. Zepeda, please.
Thank you. So I am a benefits broker. I do insurance for a living, and this is right up my alley. So the OPEB liability, so a few different things, right? OPEB, other post-employment benefits, and that is more or less our promise to those employees that worked with us prior. We made a promise to them that we're going to pay them for their service going forward once they retire. And then we need more employees, so that kind of disbalance, as Tom was mentioning. Some feedback here. So I work with other cities, and actually made the news, where we were able to remove their OPEB liability. We got creative, and we were able to save that city over $1 million, and now they got rid of that liability. So there are creative ways out there. We just need the leaders that both have the knowledge and have the guts to be able to do it. Because you need to have tough conversations, or again, we're going to be going the wrong direction. And we're at a time right now that, we can't wait till 2020, because that's already a year away, right? We were not waiting for those flying cars. This time is flying by so quickly. There are ways. One of the ways was, if you look at your property tax, for those of you who own property, you can see a Richmond tax. That's for that. And it's specifically just to pay for that liability. So be aware of what that is and see who can provide those options to the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much. How are we on time, Kara? I think we're going to want to you guys get ready. We're going to ask one more question, but after that, we're going to allow the candidates to make their case, present why the residents of Richmond should vote for you for the particular office that you will be running for. So this question, affordable housing, it is the hot topic, the hot button topic in Richmond. What would you propose to ease the shortage of affordable housing in Richmond, California? Let's start with Lady Thompson.
We not only have a shortage of housing, but we have a crisis in the city of Richmond. It's not just in Richmond, but it's pretty much all over in other cities and throughout the states. But the thing is, when you have a shortage in houses, that means more people is coming in. So in order to accommodate those people, we have to build more houses, or we have to come up with an idea as to how to build houses so that we can accommodate everybody. In the city of Richmond, we have vacant land that the city is building homes on. We could utilize some of those homes that's being built by the city so that we can put people in those houses. And that way, hopefully, we could get rid of our shortage, but it's really hard. When you say we have a shortage, we have more people coming in, more than we can accommodate.
Which way we go?
Dave, why don't you hit that?
Thank you very much. So Apple built a giant campus, the Silicon Valley's brought over 300,000 new jobs. How many new housing did they build? Donut, 0, right? So every day that we ask for businesses to come here and build and set up shop, but there's no housing to go along with it, we need to have a strategic plan. What about incentives to builders to build? What about streamlining the permits that it requires to build? What about, as we're looking at right now in the ballot measure that you're going to see, there's going to be a fine levied against a property owner who has a blighted piece of property, hasn't developed on it. Why not give them an incentive to put tiny homes on that property? So I didn't come up with these all by myself. I had a collaborative solutions workshop that was just focused on housing and homelessness in the city of Richmond. And these ideas came from the people. The ground up is where we're going to find our answers. The wisdom is right there. And that's how we're going to find our way to the future. Build more, both for luxury, market, and affordable housing, because that's all across the board. It can't just be for one. It's got to be all the way across the board, because somebody who has a loan can buy anywhere. If they have a $700,000 loan, they can buy anywhere that they want to buy. So we got to build homes that are for everybody across the economic strata.
Ms. Recinos.
We have to keep folks who are living in a nice apartment or nice home place-based. One of the strongest ways that we can avoid massive movement of folks around our area is to keep them in their homes where they're comfortable. And that means supporting our landlords to be able to increase the rent fairly, get a fair return, make those capital improvements if they need to, and assist them with how they're going to do that. I also think that we have to find the right types of developers that have our values in mind. It's not the other way around. If you're going to come to Richmond, you need to believe in equity and social justice. You need to believe that the people who we house first are the ones who are here. And then we can start thinking about, luxury housing or housing for the higher class. We already know that building just luxury housing does not trickle down to affordable housing for our low-income residents. We also need to maximize density. So we're making sure that we are enforcing our inclusionary housing fee to have more units that are affordable for our community members. And we also have to educate our current homeowners to keep their home if they so desire, because it's often more expensive to sell it and still try to live in the same community, because usually houses then are too expensive to purchase. And we need to promote and educate our homeowners to pass on that wealth, that legacy to their family members. We need to be able to support them to do that. More than anything, I think that the full enforcement of our rent board and our Tenant Protections Act is going to keep people safe, knowledgeable about what their rights are, and also support our homeowners to know exactly what they're supposed to do and exactly what their role is and have that support. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to address that real quick? The mayor wants to have that one. I see you, Mr. Willis, right after the mayor.
Well, a couple of important points. First of all, I'm the only one up here who has written and published a comprehensive housing strategy for Richmond. It's on the internet. You can go read it. The second thing is that I think a lot of people up here have it wrong. There are three sources of subsidies for affordable housing. Affordable housing only gets built with subsidies. There are three sources: tax credits, cap and trade, and the third one is one that we have some control over, and that's our inclusionary zoning. When we build market rate housing for sale, it creates millions of dollars in subsidies that go into our inclusionary housing fund. And that's where affordable housing developers go to put their financing package together to do that. So we need to build housing for everybody. And if we say we're just going to build affordable housing, number one, it's not going to happen. And the second thing is that if we build housing for everyone, and if we have housing that's high end, then with every unit of that, we get units of affordable housing from affordable housing developers that use those subsidies. So we need to go out and bring those housing developers in here. And the final thing I'd like to say is that if Costa Hawkins gets repealed and rent control covers all of Richmond, I don't think you're ever going to see a rental project built in Richmond again. It just won't happen. And if you think we got problems now, wait till then.
Whoa, Mr. Willis.
Vote yes on Prop 10. Repeal Costa Hawkins. First of all, it's always been said that rent control stops development of housing, but San Francisco and LA, both major cities, are building housing faster than any other jurisdiction that doesn't have housing. So is Berkeley and so is Oakland. Rent control hasn't stopped them from building. In a state, the California state constitution guarantees a fair rate of return, and the beautiful thing about Richmond's rent board is that there is actually a petition process for if a landlord needs to go up on rent more than the allowable limit, then that can be petitioned to the rent board and a process can take place to make sure that it's a justifiable rent increase. Rent control doesn't say don't go up on rent, it just limits you from not increasing rent by $1,000 like some residents I've already talked to, or the heritage apartments. I almost looked at a 12% rent increase and they would have been displaced if that rent board wasn't there. So we have to start by preserving the very minimal existing affordable housing we have, because to build housing in general, optimistically 3 to 5 years to build housing. So we need to preserve housing and make sure that our planning and building department, whenever projects are coming forward, as Adornacino's already said, they're looking at projects that represents the values that our council has. Where can we have the most density? Who are we attracting to Richmond? Because we look at projects all the time, but we need to make sure that the projects we're looking at not only have affordable housing incorporated into it, but mixed-use development, and we need to increase our in-lieu fees to the point to where if a developer pays a fee, it's accumulating enough money so we can start to either A, support developers who want to build affordable housing, or B, figure out what we are doing to encourage affordable housing with those fees. But we need to increase in-lieu fees, vote yes on Prop 10, repeal Costa Hawkins, and work with our planning and building department to make sure that they are doing their jobs to represent the values of affordable mixed-use development to prevent displacement in our community.
Wow, wow. Wow, would you guys put your hands together for the city council candidates as well as the mayoral candidates? You guys did a great job tackling those questions. We appreciate you coming and lending your thoughts to how we can make Richmond a better city. We are now going to allow the candidates for 3 minutes to let you know why on November 6th you should go down to the ballot and vote for them. We're going to be 3 minutes strict on this. So you guys please get your thoughts together, and we're going to go in order as we did earlier. We're going to start with Miss Virginia Ramirez, and she's going to let you know why you should vote for her for City Councilwoman.
When do I start? Now? Oh. Hi, my name is Virginia Ramirez, and I go by Vicky. I have lived in Richmond for the past 20 years and attended the public schools here. I graduated from UC Berkeley with a BA in social welfare in 2012. I chose that career because I genuinely care for the welfare of others. I'm a proud member of ACE, that's Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. This organization goes door knocking and asks the residents what issues they're going through and helps them advocate to better these issues. I help advocate for rent control and just cause for evictions. I supported Contra Costa Cares, which is it provides health care to undocumented residents in Contra Costa. They have went up to 400,000 now and are taking applications. And I've also participated in advocating for the UC Berkeley Global Campus community benefits campaign when they wanted to come into Richmond. My vision for Richmond is a Richmond that does not cooperate with ICE, that's Immigration Customs Enforcement. My vision for Richmond is a Richmond that continues their daily maintenance of the city's roads and the parks they've already created last year. My vision for Richmond is a Richmond that continues to beautify the city as they've been doing so far. You've seen all those murals. My vision for Richmond is one where they revitalize 23rd Street and bring more jobs, bring more businesses to downtown Richmond, especially all those buildings that have been empty for the past years. And lastly, my vision for Richmond is a Richmond a Richmond that sees housing as a necessity for the city of Richmond and not just for profit. People over profits. Thank you.
So again, I am Carol Johnson, and I want to thank everybody for coming and all of the people who put this event together, the behind-the-scenes people. And I want to say that I really hope you will elect me to the City Council, and although I am not native to Richmond, I have lived here for over 20 years, and being from such a big and dangerous city as San Francisco, I would not rather live anywhere else but Richmond. So while I was pursuing my college education, my criminal justice degree, my bachelor's degree there, I suffered through the loss of, or the senseless deaths of 2 of my cousins from gun violence, and also several family members, other family members and friends. So that was the initial issue that got me involved in the community 11 years ago, was violence prevention. So in answer to a previous question, I got involved with Richmond Ceasefire back in 2011, and walking through different parts of Richmond was exactly what I did. And if anybody knows San Francisco, they know that it's much more dangerous. So if I could survive there, I definitely had no problem in any part of Richmond, north, south, or even central Richmond. No part of Richmond, was off limits. And I also got involved in other activities with ACE and with the Richmond Progressive Alliance for raising the minimum wage and banning the box for formerly incarcerated people so that they could have second chances for jobs and also for housing. And I was also involved in stopping the jail, or protesting against the jail expansion, excuse me. And I'm also currently on the homeless task force to look at sustainable ways to reduce homelessness in the city of Richmond. And if elected, I will be able to take my passion and my service to the next level. So hopefully you will vote for me in November.
Hello, I'm a 40-year resident of Richmond. 23 of those 40 years I've been serving this community. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was tough. By the age of 18, I was already in gangs, and I had 20 of my friends murdered. At that moment in time, Richmond was the #1, sorry about that. It was the #1 most dangerous city in the state and 11th in the nation. After a crucial recovery from getting shot, I thank God that He put me in front of good leaders and role models who was able to spark that light in me, like Captain Ed Medina, Fred Jackson, one of my good friends, and of course, other leaders here in the community. Soon after, I started working with the Richmond Police Department as a crime prevention specialist. I also worked in the school district as the Student Support Services Supervisor and Director of the Healthy Start program. I also served 9 years as the Recreation and Parks Commission. I'm also a founder of one of the most successful soccer programs here, serving 300 families in this community. I also currently serving in the Citizens Police Review Commission. Richmond is one of the most diverse communities in the Bay Area. And Richmond needs a leader who is bilingual, not just someone who speaks the language, but someone who understands the culture. Yo hablo bien el español, fue mi primer idioma, nunca he abandonado mis costumbres o mi cultura. Richmond is in desperate need of an independent leader who can serve everyone and can trust and be trusted and has a track record. Richmond also needs someone who has the credibility in this community. I speak from personal experience and 23 years of serving this community, and I humbly ask for your endorsement and support because I am that leader. Thank you.
Well, once again, good evening, everyone. My name is Dimlis Johnson III, and I'm running for Richmond City Council. I was born at Brookside Hospital in 1992, and I was raised in the Iron Triangle. I'm 4th generation Richmond, California, on both sides of my family. My great-grandparents migrated to this great city during the shipyard days to work at the Kaiser shipyards. My grandfather owned a Savoy nightclub in North Richmond. All of my grandparents are union. I'm 4th generation union worker. I'm a shop steward for Teamsters Local 856. If elected on November 6th, I'll be sure to make economic empowerment, community engagement, and public safety my top priorities. Also, right now in this age of gentrification and displacement, what Richmond needs is homegrown leadership. Local individuals who came back to make a difference in the community and looking to move Richmond forward without leaving anyone behind. And that's exactly what you get when you elect Dimlis Johnson III to Richmond City Council. Thank you.
I'm Eduardo Martinez, currently serving on the City Council. I'm a retired teacher. I taught at Downer Elementary for 18 years. I also worked in juvenile hall, and I helped set up a 7th to 8th grade court self-contained classroom for truants, for pre-expulsion, and for kids just out of juvie and not ready to go back into the classroom. I know how to work with all kinds of people, and as a teacher, you should know a teacher has to have a wide variety of abilities, you know, in terms of working with social workers, working with parents, working with community leaders, working with children, and working with superiors. I think my job is as a communicator, and I have my phone ready to answer any questions 24/7. I'm also retired, as I said, and as a retired person, I devote my entire life to doing this job and doing this job well. Business leaders recognize me as someone who listens to them and helps them network. I do a lot of outreach, trying to bring businesses in. And I also work with unions, and I work with community groups and environmental groups, and I'm trying to move Richmond forward, making sure that our toxic sites are cleaned up to the fullest possible level so that we can have housing where people can live and not have to worry about the caps breaking during an earthquake and all the poisons coming up, or with sea level rise, having the poisons that we leave in the ground will leak into the bay. So I'm for a comprehensive renaissance of the city of Richmond.
Hello, everyone. I would be very happy to have your vote on November 6th, and I would be happy if you would also join me in voting for Eduardo Martinez for City Council and Melvin Willis for Mayor. I believe that together we can advocate for the needs of working families in the city and get things done effectively. My name is Ada Recinos, and I say it that way because my parents emigrated from El Salvador in the 80s due to the Civil War. All we know and all we have known is survival. My parents having to work sometimes 2-3 jobs, side hustles to make ends meet. It should not be that hard for our families to put food on the table or to avoid eviction. It's enough. Time's up for that. We need to be able to support our working families to stay in their homes, to have access to good jobs and the trainings that are going to help them get the promotions they need to keep up with rising costs. We need to change and pivot everything that we've done and do something different and focus on families. More than anything, I want to ask you to vote for me because for probably a decade now, under the guidance of my mother, I have been working with immigrant women to empower them to go get those jobs, be entrepreneurs, advocate for their community, and get involved. I commit to you that responsibility to reach out to the women who are the pillars in our community and ask them for the partnership because they have already been doing the work for so many years. When I was appointed last fall, I dove right in to be able to update our sanctuary city policy to make sure that the city staff was not cooperating with ICE. And then a couple of months later, I partnered with Jovanka Beckles, Assembly District 15 candidate. I would like you also to vote for her so that we can partner together and continue to advocate for our working families. We created the Deport ICE proposal and it passed, officially cutting ties with companies that were sharing data, surveilling not only immigrant families, but the Black community as well, and surveilling those folks who they thought were suspicious. We need to end that, and the only way that we could do that is by coming together. I also am a supporter of our environmental policies. I implemented a Buy Clean policy a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to turn around how we purchase products for construction so that we're reducing our carbon emissions and we're holding our consultants and the business owners that we count on accountable. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to working with you because I do consider this a partnership. We're in this together if we want to make Richmond even more better than it already is. Thank you.
I'm coming your way. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Schoenthal. I'm running for Richmond City Council in 2018, and I'm asking for your vote. Richmond, I've lived here for 18 years with my family, and I want other people to see what we see, the greatness that is Richmond. For 9 of the last years, I've served as a community volunteer. That is raising money for the local schools that my daughter goes to. That is giving back to the community. If someone needs a hand, I give it. I help out no matter what, because I want to be a servant leader. Family, faith, and finance. My family comes first, my faith second, and I go for the money to help out the people who need it. You guys may have heard about these things called collaborative solutions workshops, and I've done 9 of them now. People are talking about them. People are talking about doing them when they get in office. Well, guess what? That's what I want to bring to the city. We aren't talking to each other anymore. We are just yelling at each other across the chasm. So here is a point where it comes into play. Conflict is good. Put it in the room, facilitate it, and find solutions that come from the people. That's what I want to put in city government, working on things like hiring new police officers, bringing people together so that we can police the city together in a community policing program. Affordability and jobs, hiring local. We talked about it many times, but we need to make it a strategic policy. And also neighborhood integrity. Because where I've heard multiple times when we had collaborative solutions workshops or when I went to a neighborhood council, they were saying, we need help. Can you help us? Whether it's with donuts in the street, and I'm not talking about donuts eating, I'm talking about cars driving around in donuts, or whether it be, hey, there are eucalyptus trees over here in the Far Mead district that may be falling on people's houses. We need to get those cut back. You need to listen to us, the people on the ground. So I'm bringing back what's called leadership that listens. The part of the reason why that resonates for me is that I cannot hear in my right ear. So I have to intently listen stronger. Also, my daughter, who's 12 years old, helps me out with that every single day. She keeps me humble. My daughter, 12 years ago, we went to Omaha, Nebraska, and we brought home our baby girl, adopted. She only knows one place, Richmond. She is a Richmonder. My wife and I are growing a first-generation Richmonder. Want this to be a place where she wants to live, grow, and succeed with all of her friends in a beautiful city. So with that, I ask for your vote on November 6th, 2018. Fired up and ready to go for Richmond, Dave Schoenthal.
Okay. All right. Hello again. My name is Eleanor Thompson, and I am the most experienced senior candidate for City Council. I have lived in the city of Richmond for over 50 years, and everybody's talking about what they're going to do. But I've already been doing it for many, many, many years, ever since 1991. I work with youth in the street to try to keep them out of prison and out of juvenile hall. I volunteered at juvenile hall for many years. Okay, I'm going to read this because I don't want to miss nothing. I have served as a substitute teacher with the, with the school district. I have served as president of the Iron Triangle Neighborhood Council. For 5 years, I served as a member of the Anti-Drug Task Force for the city. I have also been elected as district representative to represent West County Democratic Party at the county level. Today, our streets are safer because of my work with former police chief William Lansdowne. I worked on his committee to set up the community policing. I have been honored by many organizations and former Mayor, Honorable Mayor Gail McLaughlin, and received the Citizen of the Year Award. And I was nominated for that award by an officer who came out to my youth program, and he saw how I worked with the youth. So he went back and nominated me to receive this award, and I received that award. So, and also, I just want to go on because I still have a little time. I got involved in 1991, working in the city of Richmond. During that time, we had 64 killings of young black men in the street, and that's when I got involved to do something for our young people. I had to drive young people from North Richmond to Kennedy High School because they couldn't cross those lines. So I have been doing the work for many years, so I didn't just start. And I'm concerned about the senior and the youth in the city of Richmond. And I want to do all I can to help those who need the help. And I will listen to you. But as Livingston once said, I am only one vote. When we used to go and complain to him about what was going on, he said, I might vote for it, but I'm only one vote. So we're going to need those to back us up sometime, to help us out. When you come and you want something, you need to come in numbers. One person not going to do it. And we just got through fighting, trying to get money from the city for grants for young people. We're getting ready to start a program for diploma, not GED, but they will receive a diploma because we did get some funding from the city. Thank you very much. Vote for Eleanor Thompson, November 6th.
My name is Cesar Zepeda, and I am the candidate and the community leader that gets things done. I have been a leader in the community for many, many years. I am pragmatic, I am balanced, I am president of the Hilltop District Neighborhood Council, and what got me started here was a question from another community leader saying, what is going on with that piece of dirt? I did the research. That piece of dirt was supposed to be a park. At that time, 16 years prior to that date. Someone dropped the ball and our community was suffering. Now, you can go to that park. It's right next to, next to the Starbucks on the corner of Richmond Parkway and San Pablo Avenue. I've been doing the work out here. I see issues, I tackle them head on. About 2 years ago, 50 community leaders were asked to be principal for the day at various schools within the school district. Out of 50 community leaders, I seem to be the only one to see a problem and work to fix it. I went to Richmond High School. I attended there as well. But that day I went and I saw the band room had old twisted instruments from Helms, Adams, whatever they can put together. That was the band Richmond High School had. I asked the teacher to give me a list of what was needed. I went out to raise $40,000 to give them a new band. We didn't raise $40,000. We raised over $100,000, and the Richmond High School band you see there now is the work of the community that came out and gave money to give another life, another opportunity to those students. There was an angel donor that came out. He has given over $250,000 to that band program. I am a community leader that gets the things done, and that is why I have been endorsed by our state senator, Kevin DeLeon, our state controller, Betty Yee. Now she handles our money. I've been endorsed by several of our unions, and I just recently found out that I just received the California Democratic State Party endorsement. And I've also been endorsed by the Equality California. I came to the United States when I was 8 years old, and I could not speak English. People made fun of me because I was gay. Years later now, I am a community leader that is fighting for every single community out there. And I tell you, whether I get elected or not, it's not if I get elected, I am already doing the work, regardless of a title, and we should all be doing that. Now I hope that I get to earn your vote this November. And I'm going to finish with this quote from John Kennedy. Our task is not to fix the blame for the past, but to fix the course of the future. Thank you.
All right, give it up for your candidates for city council members. You guys got some hard decisions to make on November 6th. Thank you guys so much. We're going to have our mayoral candidates come and tell us why we should vote for them. We'll start with Melvin Willis first.
Well, good evening again, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and having us out here. My name is Melvin Willis. I grew up here in Richmond in a single family household because my father ended up passing away 12 days before I was born. Always been in a low income bracket and always struggling with the bare minimum. I got involved as a community organizer with ACE 7 years ago, and I'm still organizing in the community. I was elected to Richmond City Council in 2016 because when rent control became the issue and not many candidates were defending it, I was asked to step up, so I did, because I was actually out there door knocking people, not only finding out about absorptive increases anywhere between $50 to $600, sometimes double, but also hearing about people having to move strangers into their households, which led to assaults on their family or bad conditions that people were living in that led to their families having to go to the hospital because they had no protections, and anytime they went in front of a judge, they told them to move somewhere else. When I sit here before you today, these issues are important to me. Regardless of what happens on the election day, I'm still going to be involved in the community because this isn't about me. It's not about any of the other candidates out here. It's about the people in Richmond and what are we doing to come together to get power in numbers, to make a difference for our city that we love and actually do have pride in and give it its purpose. I've been involved in increasing the minimum wage. When Assembly candidate Jovanka Beckles was pushing for it, I came out to speak out in support of it, and when I got elected, worked with her to where it's going to be $15 an hour by next year with a cost of living adjustment. Helping pass rent control just cause for eviction, whether it was advocating at City Council, turning out tenants, or gathering the signatures on myself and making it a part of my campaign without any hesitation. Organizing housing preservation fairs so homeowners can sit down in front of counselors and be able to figure out how they can save their homes from the predatory lending of Wall Street. Organizing county efforts to pass Contra Costa Cares so 4,400 people in our county can get access to health coverage regardless of immigration status, keeping people out of emergency room and taking care of their health before it gets to that point so it's not a burden on taxpayers and it promotes healthier communities. And even going out to different jurisdictions of the counties when our district attorney appointment was up and stopping people on the street saying, do you know that we don't have a district attorney? Please support Dinah Beckton. She is the first woman and first African-American woman to not only just step up, but actually win it, and it believes in bail reform and believes in working with community members in diversion programs. Speaking out against the jail expansion, lobbying statewide for increased money for affordable housing by getting rid of tax loopholes on second homes or a statewide real estate transfer tax. These are all the things I do it because, once again, it's not about me. It's about the fact that there was an issue that was happening. Community members were being impacted. I work with those community members all the time. I hear the stories every day, and I carry that with me. And it is my duty, my obligation, my responsibility to make sure that the community members I work with or don't work with are represented behind that dais in the county or in Sacramento as I'm doing the work that I do with people. I'm running as a candidate that doesn't take any corporate donations. I'm supporting candidates like Ada Cinos and Eduardo Martinez because they don't take corporate donations, and everything I just mentioned, they back me up on that. Virginia Ramirez and Carol Johnson, I work with them a lot too, and they have also backed me up and show up unquestionably. All of these candidates are great. I'm just mentioning the folks that I work with, and supporting Jovanka Beckles for AD 15 and telling people to vote yes on Prop 10 because it's about stabilizing our existing affordable housing and make sure that places like Richmond remain places like Richmond and do not become the next San Francisco. And regardless of what happens on that election day, I hope I can count on your vote on November 6th for mayor as a corporate-free candidate. But at the same time, I am your vice mayor right now. Hold me accountable. That's what I'm there for. Your public officials are there for you, to represent you. So if there's an issue that you have, my card is right there on the table with my cell phone. Call me, let's meet, and let's work it out, because that 12% increase that happened at Heritage Park, that 12% increase that rent control couldn't cover because it wasn't qualified because of Costa Hawkins, that happened because those folks reached out to me. I got them connected to our rent program, connected to a community group, and now they only got a 3% rent increase, and none of them are homeless because we got together and got involved. So thank you so much for your time tonight, and please, I hope I can count on your support. Melvin Willis for Richmond Mayor 2018, November the 6th.
During my term as mayor, we've moved Richmond in a new progressive direction. Crime is down, unemployment is the lowest in Richmond history. The Richmond Promise program has given over 1,000 scholarships at a cost of somewhere around $6 million. Richmonders are saving millions on electricity from MCE while helping to protect the earth from global warming. The ferry is only a few months off. We stood up to Trump on immigration, climate change, and the environment. I served on the Richmond City Council 19 years, including vice mayor twice. I've won 5 elections. My 6th election, 4 years ago, I stood up to Chevron, and despite them spending $3 million to get my opponent elected. I was elected with 51% of the vote. I'm an independent candidate. I represent all Richmond residents. My opponent is part of a slate with a narrowly focused platform that leaves many Richmonders out. I want to tell you about my endorsements. I'm honored to have the support of dozens of progressive leaders throughout the West County community, including Congressman DeSaulnier, former Congressman Miller, Supervisor John Gioia, and one person I've heard several people speak here about, District Attorney Diana Becton. She's endorsed me for mayor. Former mayors Irma Anderson, Rosemary Corbin, the West County Democrats, police, fire, almost all the neighborhood council presidents, and I just found out tonight I got the endorsement from the Democratic Party of Contra Costa County. You have two clear choices for mayor. You can go with experienced leadership that has moved this city forward, or you can speculate on an untested candidate with few ideas. Richmond is a large and diverse community, but is united on several things. Crime and safety is at the top of the list for most people. Homicides, shootings, break-in, car thefts, speeding, donuts are all too frequent. I support a robust police department that practices community policing, as well as programs like Ceasefire and the Office of Neighborhood Safety. My opponent doesn't trust the police. I want to provide new technology that law enforcement needs to do their job, like ShotSpotter, license plate readers, video surveillance. My opponent voted to take some of these tools away because of speculation about some connection to Homeland Security. Young people are our future, and we need to partner with our schools to give them the best possible education. That's why I negotiated the $35 million Richmond Promise program. My opponent's political mentors and a Team Richmond slate member voted against it, but now they're taking credit for it. Next to crime, people care most about infrastructure, the conditions of our streets, our medians, sidewalks, and parks. Potholes and weeds are frequent complaints. We need to build up our tax base with new economic developments and business to provide a higher level of service. My opponent, however, is suspicious of business and developers. Finally, we need to provide more housing for people at all income levels. My opponent believes we should build only affordable housing, forgetting that market rate housing provides the necessary subsidies for affordable housing. My opponent's political allies have tried to vote down several housing projects, including even affordable housing. I have a comprehensive housing strategy that you can read on the internet. So the choice is yours, proven experience or a leap of faith. I hope you'll support me in the November election.
All right, well, there you have it with the candidate. All candidates, please stand, please. I'm sorry? I'd like you to recognize Vinay Pimplay. Oh, how are you? Good to have, is he running as well? He is a candidate for, why don't you come and have a couple words, Renee? Who is it? Vinay, I'm sorry. Forgive me. How are you, sir? Good, here you are.
Yeah, so thank you for allowing me to speak a few words. I was actually at the Contra Costa County committee meeting, and I was endorsed by the California Democratic Party too. And sometimes they just pull things off the consent calendar, and about 2/3 of the races were pulled. So that is why to be here. I'm sorry I couldn't be here at the start. But so with me, the key things that I fought for when I was on council were education, jobs, and fiscal responsibility. After I got on city council, the city's bond rating was downgraded. I fought really hard to get our city back on track, and now our credit rating has been restored. I have volunteered for our youth, for our school students, and I'll make sure that the Richmond Promise doesn't just serve 1,000 students in 3 years, but 1,000 students every year, which is what we budgeted for. We just need to do a better job. I also promise to work hard to make sure that our students, once they get out of school, they either go to college or they go into good jobs. So we need to track them into good careers with the building trades. I will work hard to make that happen. I will also make sure that our government is as transparent and accountable as possible. You'll always find me available to talk with everybody and to be completely honest about what is happening, to make sure that we don't have closed-door deals. So that is what you can depend on. So I hope you'll vote for me, Vinay Pimple, for Richmond City Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. He was doing other business. That's why he was late. He was at another meeting, and we honor you for coming. Thank you so much. Give our candidates another round of applause. So there you have it, the town hall meeting, Richmond, California, meeting the candidates for city council and the mayoral candidates. We thank you guys so much for coming out. I had a ball. My name is Stephen Parker. You can watch the whole video on my Facebook page. Go to Stephen Parker. You can watch this whole town meeting. Thank you, Kara. The shops at Hilltop. We have food upstairs for everybody. You guys go upstairs and get you some food. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next time.